My name is Jennifer Ocker. I'm the General Atlantic Professor of Marketing at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and I authored the book, The Dragonfly Effect.
I'm Andy Smith. I'm a principal of Vona Ventures, and I also authored The Dragonfly Effect. We looked out at the market and thought there was a gap. There's a lot of books on Twitter, there's a lot of books on different aspects of marketing, and a lot of books on psychology, but we didn't see a book that brought it all together in a way that people could actually put to work for a particular goal. And that's exactly what we try to do. We blend in enough information about social media to get people over the hump of understanding and understand how it's more like traditional media than they might have originally thought, and enough about how individuals behave and are motivated such that they might be able to construct a particular appeal to them, and enough about how marketing actually works to move through the processes of awareness and commitment and involvement so that someone can actually convert someone to purchase or to donate or to participate in a cause.
And Andy's been interested in social media for a long time, often saying that social media is the only marketing that you can't buy. So I thought it was interesting, but at the end of the day, I thought it was really a waste of time. Initially, I thought it was very difficult to understand why people would be spending their time harnessing Facebook, Twitter, video. And it wasn't until I heard a story by one of my students, Robert Chatwani, who told the story of his 32-year-old best friend, Samir Bhatia, who had leukemia. And what Robert and Robert's friends and family and Samir's friends and family did is tackle a single focused goal, which in Samir's case was, how do you find a bone marrow match? The doctors told them that there was a 1 in 20,000 chance that they would find a bone marrow match for Samir. So Samir's friends and family took that as a very simple business challenge, which is, how are we going to get 20,000 Southeast Asians in the bone marrow registry? They only had weeks to do so. And they harnessed social media along with traditional means to get, in fact, 24,611 Southeast Asians in the bone marrow registry in 11 weeks. It was an incredible story where, I would hear that a friend had leukemia. What could I do? I would think, could I bring them a lasagna? Could I help babysit their kids? And what Robert and Samir's friends and family did was life-changing. And in fact, they found a perfect match for Samir. And ultimately, just in the year after that effort, matched with 266 other individuals just based on those 24,611 individuals registered into that bone marrow registry in 11 weeks. So it was an incredible story that was told to me, and I think it really changed the way I saw how social media could be effective.
And what was also an opportunity we saw here was that rather than have this simply be an anecdotal story, Robert Chatwani had left us with a toolkit, essentially, that showed how he did it. It wasn't just that they did it and it was an amazing feat. It was that he created a methodology which outlined specifically the things that he emphasized at each stage, and how they took the effort beyond themselves, beyond the people who were directly affected, to a wider scope. And so when the opportunity came to write this up, to do something with it, I thought that it was particularly incumbent on us to put it into a way that other people could use, so that someone else who has a friend who's dying of leukemia doesn't have to be as amazingly talented and original and motivated. Actually, they need the motivation, but they didn't have to invent it from scratch. And that was one of the principles that came out of his work, was to make it so that everything was invented once. The toolkit that they used to inspire people and to help people do their own bone marrow drives was something that they created once and they rolled out many times, and they templated everything based on their own experience. Here's the message you need to send to the CEO of the company you work for. Here's the message you need to send to human resources. Here's how you get in touch with the registry organization that will actually provide the donor kits. Here's how you get it done, and just search and replace, fill in different blanks, and you've got a bone marrow drive in a box, or social change in a box more broadly.
And then what we did was we took a lot of the principles we do research on, the psychology of happiness, the psychology of motivation, why people are motivated, along with some of the tools we know from the research on .orgs, .coms, how are they perceived, how do people become effective in organizational settings, and that became the basis of the book.
The message of this book is that you don't need a tremendous amount of resources to make a remarkable amount of change. And that if you can take Robert as the example, he was an individual who was faced with an unacceptable situation. His friend was dying. And he didn't have a tremendous amount of money or other resources to put against it, but he had an amazing amount of will and smarts. And that's essentially what we see the Dragonfly effect powering. If you've got something that is singular and clear and focused and you've got the will to do it, the technology is there to make it happen. And a clear understanding of the way things work in the social space will help it actually get done. And it doesn't matter whether you are the individual, such as Robert, or a large company. If you've got a mission, an idea that can capture the imagination and the interest of people well beyond yourself and well beyond your organization, you have an opportunity to make something big happen.
So the basic model of the Dragonfly is based on 4 wings. The first wing is focus, which is what is your single, clear, objective goal. It has to be measurable. The mere thought of achieving that goal should make you happy at some level. The second wing is grab attention. What makes people look? And there's a series of design principles that help define what really grabs attention. The third wing is potentially more difficult, which is how do you engage? How do you make people feel truly connected to the cause, to the organization, to the goal itself? And that has a lot to do with storytelling, with authenticity, with personal connection. And then the final wing is take action, or how do you enable others to act so that the focused goal is not just something that you have, but others share. And ultimately, when these 4 small acts or 4 wings act in concert, the dragonfly lifts. And the dragonfly is the only insect that can fly in any direction when all 4 wings are acting in concert. So it's a good metaphor for the ideas that we're trying to convey in the book. It's also a symbol of happiness and change, which are the seeds of the research that are also embedded in the book.
One story that caught our attention about a year ago was a story of the Montana Meth Project. It was a project spearheaded by Tom Siebel, who found that by spending a lot of time in Montana, he noticed that in conversations with folks in law enforcement, that there was a disproportionate amount of crimes that were caused by meth-related activities. And there was literally an epidemic status in the state. And so he took it upon himself to address the question of why and what can be done about it. And what he took was a relatively businesslike approach, or a very businesslike approach, to getting things done. First of all, he set about identifying what was his goal in terms of doing this, and it was really clear. It was like reduce the incidence of meth in Montana. And but in doing that, had to figure out where was it a problem, where did it lead to long-term effects, and went through a very methodical process where they identified that adults may be doing meth, but they started doing it when they were teens, and so targeted specifically focusing on teens to basically cut out the root of the instance. And then they also went forward and said, well, why haven't previous efforts worked to reduce this? And it was that the people who are in this market are highly influenced by advertising, but not by advertising that are put in the typical PSA space or in the typical this is your brain on drugs space. And they really went to the trouble of understanding what grabbed people's attention. What would someone who was considering meth, a teenager in high school who was about to try it for the first time, what was the thing that would get their attention? And they struck upon this message of not even once. And the story that was told was, among meth addicts, what was the thing that you wish you could do to tell, your younger brother or your younger friend, what not to do, and it was that don't even try it once. And they used that story and rolled it out in a very effective, methodical way. And when they looked at their metrics, they had a dramatic impact, reducing meth arrests and meth instances among the target group just phenomenally. And as a result, the project has been rolled out to multiple states, and they made the tools and the learnings available to state drug enforcement organizations, for the past 5 years. We hope that people who pick up the book will put it to use. It is more than a collection of stories to us. It is an action plan for getting things done. And the more people that take it on, that find creative ways to deploy social technology, social media in support of things that people beyond themselves, beyond their organizations believe is worthwhile, we hope that they will in turn add to our knowledge base, add to the sort of the collective idea of what works in this space. And we intend this to be used. We hope that people will buy it and put it to work, and then help us make it even better.
And I think from a for-profit perspective, one of the most exciting things about the book is the employees or executives that read this book, I think, have a different way of thinking about building a brand through storytelling, through principles of authenticity, and also building a brand that enables others to take action. So not just employees, but also customers. How did they help build that brand? So it's more of a community-focused way of brand building. And then from a nonprofit perspective, there's so many nonprofits that have a strong mission and a single focused goal already, but the book is intended, as Andy says, to be a roadmap to make them even more effective.